new audience here. You ready for that?
Okay.
So
Here we
yeah.
go.
Here we
Going
go.
live on YouTube.
YouTube.
We're going to. We may have to send new information to Leah, who's putting this on the stream. I will. I'll see if I can do that. So I will be a little bit disengaged from conversation while I solve that.
Okay. Okay. So we ready to roll on YouTube?
Yeah, we're there. We're going.
We're on YouTube. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're on YouTube, and we're now going to be placing bets on how long before YouTube deplatforms us for something.
There you go.
It's an honor to be back on YouTube. I say this as the guy who got Eric Metaxas banned from YouTube by being his guest.
Good job, John.
Way to go. Anyway, John, before a few minutes ago, we were just talking about disengagement. Apparently, on CNN was looking at its exit poll, and one of the analysts on their desk was all upset. You know what's missing from this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 top 5 issues? Democracy. It's not even there. So
Not on the ballot. Go figure.
well, no. Well, I'm figuring I can run as a Democrat, change my name to Democracy, and I'm in 2024.
That'll do it. Yeah.
So
And they don't realize that we're a constitutional republic, not a democracy, actually.
But I think the real truth of it is that they say, but democracy is on the ballot because the people actually on the ballot are such losers.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
I want to change my name to Free Tacos and run.
that'd be good. Yeah. So that's just kind of interesting that they're perplexed. But another issue, according to the Associated Press, when they're exit polling, there were people obviously concerned about inflation, but they used the phrase that they're concerned about. They were concerned about democracy. Now, usually when we think of that, we think of it in terms of how the left is using that term. Like the Republicans are a threat to democracy. Biden, threat to democracy. We're talking about threat to democracy. But could that also be playing the other way too? When people are answering that on exit polls, when they're watching political prisoners thrown in jail, when they're watching, pro-life activists being arrested left and right, when they're seeing parents being called domestic terrorists, could be playing both ways. Throwing it out there.
Well, we don't use phrases.
Okay, what's that? Say that, Tom.
Yeah, there's a lot of threat to democracy going on. I wrote about this today. Article came out midday today on the stream. Is that the threat to democracy comes when you've got one ruling oligarchic ideology running everything, which is what we've had the last couple of years, in not just in Washington, but in New York and in the seats of media, the education, and everywhere else. If nothing else, democracy is preserved when you get another voice there, and that's part of what today's about.
Yeah, that's half the fun. I mean, the marketplace of ideas shouldn't have guards. Shouldn't have big burly guards that keep out people they don't like. Knock it out, debate it. And that I think is part of the frustration is like, you can't debate it. You can't talk about those things. And bad things happen when that happens, like medical information being suppressed or political information being suppressed that can help inform people. Let them decide. American people aren't stupid. If you can't convince them. How much I want to ask a general question. How much do you think this notion that average people don't know anything? You heard it again yesterday. Some people say, they really don't, like Hillary Clinton. They really don't know what's at stake, or they don't understand, or they're getting, MSNBC talking about misinformation to black voters. Underneath that's this idea is that people are idiots. Does anybody?
That's what the elite wants. The elites want to control things. They want it to be about them, the ones that pay attention, right? Because we're too busy to pay attention. But what they're not understanding is the people underlyingly, they understand the issues. They understand what's at stake. I think where the disconnect is they feel disempowered sometimes to not do their civic duties, or they don't really understand, how get to know their elected officials or how to actually push the needle. And so with a little bit of practical education, which is what we do at Christians Engage, and what the stream does, really, a little bit of practical education can go a huge way in actually empowering them to do something, right?
Yeah. And that I think that's what scares them the most, that the people rising and being they're not worried about pitchforks and all this sort of stuff. They're just worried about normal folks having a voice.
Look how they reacted to January 6th. There are people still in solitary confinement, not even facing charges yet in our gulag on the Potomac. That's what the Democrats think about democracy.
Yeah. And we're not even talking about, in a lot of cases, like thugs or people who actually committed any violence. We're talking about people who just went to say, hey, have their voice heard, and were let in by,
By the police.
By the police, and just were there taking selfies or whatever else. And that's what's weird. And I think people see the duality, because I believe it was I forget which media outlet it was. They're talking to some independent voters, and that's what the independent voters were saying when the media company kept bringing up January 6th. They go, well, what about the riots of 2020?
I think the thing to say about that was that it was mostly peaceful. It was mostly.
Well, you say as a joke, but the fact of the matter is, and this is what I mean. I know we're supposed to be talking about the election, but I always found it absurd that Trump had the power to draw hundreds of thousands of people to the mall, but that his call to violence, which never happened, but using their argument, only a handful of those people got violent.
And weirdly, a lot of them are linked to the FBI.
Yeah, how strange is that?
And they're not getting charges filed against them. The biggest ringleaders are all the FBI, probably because the FBI sent them. But, threats to democracy. Let's remember, they called East Germany the Democratic Republic of Germany. It's the Democratic Republic of North Korea. Democracy is one of the favorite buzzwords of left-wing dictators when they want to assert control and delegitimize any opposition. So the moment somebody calls you a threat to democracy, you realize, oh, he's a fascist in the negative sense, as I once explained in an article at Stream.
And a new one, and another new buzzword and new for us in America is misinformation. that is it doesn't mean what you think it means, as the famous line goes in The Princess Bride. That misinformation is anything that's not controlled by a certain group of people who want to be in control. May not have anything to do with how factual it is.
That's right. The World Health Organization, which is controlled by China, censors YouTube and Facebook, so you can't talk about ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and other alternative treatments. You can't talk about the human Chinese biolab origins of the virus. You couldn't talk about the side effects of the dead baby vaccine. You couldn't. It is absolutely Orwellian. The whole idea that misinformation is some objective thing. Why don't they just say heresy? Why don't they just say crime think? It is crime think. Yeah. Because they don't get to decide. The government doesn't get to decide. A small cabal of dirtbags in the media with bachelor's degrees in journalism don't get to determine what is true about the universe. They don't know. They're lucky they can eat without injuring themselves. Look at Jake Tapper. Look at Brian Stelter. These are people, it's practically like a special ed thing to give them jobs on television because there's nothing else they could do.
I can say from something that I was able to partake in my time in Seattle, which was a women in media event, and it had to do with journalism and media, and actually hearing a journalist come right out and say, journalism has changed. We don't report the truth anymore, the facts. We report what people need to hear. That is our job now, is to report what people need to hear, and the truth that will help them. And that was shocking to hear this esteemed journalist reporting from the White House actually admit that.
Wow, what people need to hear.
I am old enough to have seen that change. I think. I mean, I'm in my mid. I know I look so much younger, but I remember when, if there was false information out there, someone would respond with some evidence and some reasons and some potentially true information. We'd have a good argument over it, and that still seems like a healthier way to deal with it.
Yeah.
Molly Hemingway wrote a whole book. Molly Hemingway wrote a whole book about this. How the media have decided that their job is they are the nanny, they are the special ed coach, they are the psychiatrist and the social worker of the poor drooling idiots who are in their audience, who just really couldn't think their way through a grocery list without their help. We saw Joy Reid today say that inflation is just something made up by the Republicans. It's a word that your average person wouldn't use unless the Republicans taught it to them. I guess she thinks her community, I guess she thinks that black people aren't smart enough to figure out when a price continues to go up, that this is a phenomenon that you can use a word to describe. She thinks that they don't have the intellectual capacity for that. It's something the Republicans just made up.
I wonder if part of it goes back to the movie All President's Men, and then journalism's realized if they just stick to facts, they're not going to get movies made starring Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman. Gail, you got your hand raised like you're going to say something.
Oh, no, just finding it absolutely hilarious. I mean, I will say that I did just see that Walker is currently up in Georgia right now.
Speaking of Georgia, did Stacey Abrams give her victory speech yet?
Speaking of people who plans backfired, all of this voter suppression when you ask for an ID and everything in Georgia is seeing record turnouts of people going and voting. It's just... Wow.
It was a great headline on the Babylon Bee today. Fox News calls Arizona for Stacey Abrams.
Yeah. But somebody is on MSNBC. Some analysts is saying about this. The suppression is worse than 2018, and it puts into question the election. Already. So they're already starting. That's another thing. Also, a little more seriously, was I saw a video of stores in Portland being boarded up. Now, unless there's a hurricane hitting the Pacific Northwest, you got to wonder what
they have a history there.
Yeah,
I mean, there is a Republican candidate going for governor that she's doing really well. So I guess that's kind of up if a Republican is projected to win.
I was intrigued by her plan to build a wall around Portland. I thought that was provocative, and innovative, and I think that appealed to the rest of the state.
Yeah.
We had a voter suppression a measure on the ballot here in Ohio, which was, oh my goodness, this is just so awful. We get to vote to decide as voters whether non-citizens of the United States should or should not be allowed to vote in Ohio elections. And another measure on that same, or another article or whatever on that same ballot measure was whether local jurisdictions could bypass that and allow non-citizens to vote. And the discussion is, well, citizens should be the ones to vote, but non-citizens have a stake in this too, don't they? Well, it's good grief. Yeah.
Good grief. While we're in Ohio, which is where you are, what is the vibe on the ground there in the race between Vance and Ryan?
It's a tight one. It's very hard to call. Very nasty. Oh my goodness. The negative advertising we got. J.D. Vance wants to take away your right to an abortion, even if it's to save your life. I don't know, flyer after flyer in the mail, stuff like that. By the way, his stance on abortion is strong, but he doesn't have that extreme where self-defense is not a reason for it.
I hope he retaliated with negative ads.
Yeah, he did some.
Well,
I like negative ads because most politicians are terrible people, and so all the ads are probably true. So I enjoy all negative ads, even those aimed at Republicans.
The amount of money that's being spent in some of these races this year on the Senate side have just been mind blowing. I was looking at Walker versus Warner in Georgia, $241 million.
All to decide which terrible candidate gets to be a senator. I mean, it's a lose-lose because they're both terrible candidates. Neither one would make a really good senator. And wow.
Wow, 200. That's a lot of money.
But that shows you it's all about the power. It's all about keeping the Senate in one party's hand or another. And it seems like some of the weakest candidates, I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like some of the weakest candidates on both sides of the aisle are in some of these key states that have these really, really competitive races.
Did any of you see the ad that John Fetterman did that imitated the old Coca-Cola ad from the 70s?
Oh, gosh,
With
that was horrible.
Okay, the original ad was a football player coming in from having lost a game. I think it was Rosie Greer, and he's exhausted. I'll be joking. And a little kid offers him a Coke and offers him some sympathy. Well, they have John Fetterman loping in like Frankenstein's monster, encountering a small child who does not run away in terror. So already we're losing credibility here. And Fetterman makes it as if, I've been beaten up by those mean people. I'm just trying to help people like you. And the little boy says, well, I'd vote for you. And my thought was, that little kid will vote for Fetterman 2 or 3 times by late mail-in ballots.
Yes.
Yep.
Pennsylvania. Speaking of that end of the election sort of problems, we did see some problems. Maricopa County was having hard with voter machines, and was 20% were being rejected, and some of the machines were down, and the lines were just incredibly long, and they're just saying, "Oh, just give us the ballots, we'll count them, don't worry about it." And that's Maricopa County,
which is most of the state, right?
What's that? Yeah, but population-wise is pretty is huge. But the thing is, it's
break Maricopa County up into a few counties so it'd be better governed.
Yeah. Well, Carrie Lake wasn't having any of it today. I don't know if you heard her little spiel where she's basically like, when I'm elected, there's going to be a come to Jesus moment for elections in Arizona. She was talking about just fix the system, because this is inexcusable, especially Maricopa County. After all the attention on Maricopa County and the machines and their enormous effort to stop any examination of the machines in the 2020 election and to stop any audits and all that stuff, they needed to be perfect just for their own reputation. So for this to have such a disaster, it ends up being the printer settings. They were printing out the markings, the time markings were not dark enough, so the machines were rejecting the ballots. Who doesn't test that? Who doesn't test the machines to make sure they're functioning properly? It just adds to the confusion.
Well, especially when they've had some prior warning that elections don't always go right, haven't they? Seems.
Yeah, but it's.
Maybe they're trying to go with their strength. They want to be the election fraud capital of America. They're kind of on tourism, people visiting.
Well, it's going to be hard to take it from Philadelphia. I mean, that's going to,
I
hear they changed some election rules like at the last minute about to help out with some of the ballots. And
so the dead from Gettysburg can vote now?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's weird in Pennsylvania law because they can't even start opening or looking at the mail-in ballots, until early voting closes. So it's going to be late tonight.
tomorrow, next week. Well,
or
it's gonna
a
take forever to
week.
cut.
I've heard
6
up
years.
Unless
to a week.
Yeah, unless it's a blowout. LA, they're saying, oh, it could take days, even weeks to get some of the races from in LA. That is just all of France could count it in an evening.
Why can Florida already be in? And we already have, actually, we have 2 Latina women now have picked up seats in Florida now. And they've already called, of course, DeSantis and Rubio. So Florida's got it going on. I mean, I guess they've learned something in the last 22 years.
Yeah, it's like.
When did math get so bad in school that we don't know how to count ballots anymore? I mean, because this does seem, 2020 seemed like the new thing of, okay, 1, 2, it's just.
Maybe it's
Yeah,
related
I
to people
know.
don't know how to count money, dollar bills. Yeah.
I just saw news that Sarah Huckabee Sanders has won in Arkansas, so that's good news.
Very cool. That's cool for her.
Yay!
Yay.
I'm a big fan
Maybe
of
they'll let her-
Sarah. Yeah.
Maybe now that she's back in the now that she's a governor, they'll let her in that restaurant in Virginia.
Don't count on it.
Classless.
I
That's-
did see projected in Massachusetts is going to be Maura Healey, Democrat Maura Healey, if I'm saying that right. So
Okay.
it looks like what they're
Do we
saying.
see what's going on yet in New Hampshire with the Senate race? Who's got that going on? I'm on the wrong computer.
Not seen New Hampshire yet. Oh, it looks like Phil Scott is the projected winner for Vermont too.
Okay. What's that still at? Oh, New Hampshire. Let's see what's going on. Okay, with New Hampshire, only 18% counted. Hassan is like about 60%. Bolduc about 39%. So we'll see how that goes as things go during the day. Because that's if Republicans flip New Hampshire, that's going to be crazy. And I know there's some races in Virginia 7, that they're really thinking that will be a bellwether, or that will be a signal of what's going on. So
New
we'll keep an eye on
Hampshire-
that one.
New Hampshire is a naturally Republican state, but so many people have moved from Massachusetts because they don't want to pay Massachusetts taxes, but they brought their bloody Massachusetts politics with them. So they moved to New Hampshire and continue to vote for Democrats while enjoying the legacy of decades of Republican government in New Hampshire. And that's something we worry about here in Texas, is people moving here from California and bringing the contagion with them.
Don't California my Texas.
That's right.
Yeah, we had there's another story. Our realtor, when we went to look at houses in Texas, he wouldn't really show us houses. He saw that we were from California. We had to pretty much drag him to houses we were interested in. He didn't show us anything extra. It wasn't until he said, no, we're not those kind of Californians, that he finally lightened up. So
We're moving here to join a fundamentalist end times cult. Oh, all right.
okay. OD.
For those who wonder, no, that's not the stream. That's another thing Al did. When
No,
he first
that
got
was
here.
the Blaze.
That was a different thing he did when he got there. I mean,
Oh, okay.
That was the Blaze, the original Blaze.
No. We love the Blaze. So here's something. Matt Walsh tweeted a little while ago. The pollsters may not be asking about it, but there's no doubt that the Democratic Party is partly doomed by its decision to go all in on gender ideology. We successfully made this a losing political issue for them. Talk about it in a second. But I mean, how much related, how much of it has stupid stuff turned off voters, like Whitmer calling women people with periods, or AOC apologizing for leaving her pronouns off of her Instagram account? Gail, I want to hear your thoughts. If you have any.
I mean, having come from a place where pronouns were taking out full force and that, it's very degrading as a woman to be referred to as either a birthing person if you're a mom, or a person with a period. It's not only is it not fair or nice, it's degrading, and it's making light of, you don't know what a woman went through to become a mother, or the other side of that. And it's just, I think it's something where they have officially started taking that too far, of now people going, wait, you're started, no, I don't want to be called this.
In my experience, women have exclamation points more than periods. But
Well, and I'll respond and say, I think, of course, the inflation, the economy, and paying our bills and everything is actually, is the major issues in this election. But this is like a low grade fever, I think, that's kind of underlying everything, because women are upset that their sports are being monopolized, right, by this transgender issue. I mean, there are just lots of different issues going on as it relates to this. And then parents wanting to protect their kids. I mean, here in Dallas, Fort Worth, in Irving, Texas, there was a giant, like a big cutout thing like this behind at the public library in Irving, Texas, that had kids to say, come pick out your pronouns, like 15 pronouns. We're talking in Dallas, Fort Worth, in the buckle of the Bible Belt.
were you able to fit it in the back of your truck?
No, I didn't know about it till we had a whole bunch of activists that started dealing with the library commission on it. But you're like, what in the world's happening? And so it's just insanity, where I think people, they might not be talking about it, but underlying, they're going, okay, I'm voting on the economy and inflation, but this is crazy. And so it's just like an exclamation point. I'm voting against these Democrats for this.
It almost seems wrong to vote out the party of demons because they're bad on the economy, but I'll take it.
You worried about you worried about voting out the demons and having them enter some other political body?
Yeah, and seven times over, and then run down a mountain and drown themselves in the sea.
So there's this other thing that's going on too with voter anger. Interesting to hear that the NBC is talking about the high level of anger. 73% are either angry or the next level below that, and they said it's inflation and it's abortion. Now, it's not the same people. The people who are angry about abortion are the ones who lost on Roe v. Wade this year. So I'm interested to hear what you all think about abortion anger this year.
People who are single issue abortion voters, they were never going to vote for us anyway. They were always going to turn out to vote. I don't think it changed a single vote. Someone who is so devoted to Moloch that they're going to get out and vote to keep the blood flowing on the altars to Moloch, that is not a swing voter. That is not somebody we can appeal to.
Good point. Yeah.
Okay.
I agree. I don't think the abortion issue moved anybody, very few people. And it actually, I think, really empowered the Christian voters that care about the life issue.
Yep.
Because where there seemed to be some debate in the church, I'm not a single issue voter. I'm not going to, especially with the younger generation. I talk to them all the time. They're like, I don't want to be a single issue voter. I just don't want to vote just on the life issue. And I'm like, number one, you need to look at the life issue as the first place of wisdom. If a candidate cannot make a choice on that right, how are you going to guarantee that they're going to follow any kind of wisdom as far as biblical values, right? But I think what it did is it shifted a lot of Christians that were in that train of thought to go, you know what, let me rethink this. I should be voting on the life issue first.
Yeah.
Also, we voted for pro-life candidates for decades, and nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happened. Finally, something happened. I think that should be empowering for people. I tell people I'm not a single issue voter.
Right.
I don't just vote on abortion. I also vote on guns. So there are two. I have two issues. Arm the unborn is my political slogan. And actually, that got me a job as press secretary to the governor's candidate in Louisiana who won in 1995, Mike Foster. He was pro-life and pro-gun. I jokingly said to his campaign manager that he should get a bumper sticker of a fetus sporting a 45 and a doctor with a scalpel that said "Arm the Unborn." They hired me the next day as press secretary, and that paid for the rest of my graduate school. So I know whereof I speak.
Yeah, and going back a second, but also back to John, when you talk in the abortion issue, there's a direct line, like in New York, for example, between them voting to expand abortion pretty much to birth and then deciding to stuff nursing homes with COVID patients.
That's right. The same
There's a
people.
sense- There's a sense in which abortion is not a single issue, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and somebody
And he
affirms.
agrees. The dog agrees.
Yes. Comments
Also,
would be
the fact that we're also seeing in Canada the passing of euthanasia to just basically anybody that applies, homeless. If you're feeling depressed and if you think that abortion isn't going to transition to something like that, people are saying, "Oh, give an inch, take a mile," and between late-term abortions and what that could lead to when it comes to euthanasia here. And if you look at the growing homeless problem that's happening in states and in cities like Los Angeles,
I predict a massive wave of the victims of transgender surgery applying for euthanasia in 10 years when they realize their lives are terrible, they've ruined their health, and they don't feel any better. And the liberals will do that for them too. They're always there to help. We'll cut off your healthy bodily organs. We will dose you with cancer-causing chemicals. But when it all goes south, we will euthanize you too, because we're here to help.
Yeah. Well, I think there's going to be a backlash, and you're seeing it. And I think Jay Richards, our executive editor, co-founder, et cetera, he makes that point too, that there's going to be a huge number of these kids who've gone through this who are going to be through the roof angry. And you're seeing some of it already, and that there will be the backlash. But yeah, I think you might be onto something. That what are you going to do in 10 years with those? What are you going to do with the kids who are locked up for 2 years with the COVID and who not only are behind on terms of math and reading all that stuff, but also the socialization damage? I mean, how many sociopaths did we create by locking kids in rooms in their house for?
Can you imagine if you had to spend 2 years when you were a teenager with your parents? What would that have done to you for the rest of your life?
Yeah,
I can't even think about it.
I love my parents, but
I would have
still,
turned
I mean,
out like Timothy
but the
McVeigh.
idea that you couldn't go, I mean, the idea that you couldn't, especially for the younger kids who hadn't really formed yet, what a mess we're going to end up. And what are we doing as a nation? I mean, who's talking about it on the campaign trail? Maybe that happens tomorrow. Of like, what are we going to do to catch the kids up as a nation?
Well, back to
Obviously,
the
local governments and stuff like that.
back to the sexuality thing too, but it also applies to the pandemic. The common factor there, one of many common factors there, is power. That the gay activists, homosexual activists, trans activists were always complaining about being bullied when they were pushing people around like crazy, when they were completely uncaring about what the rest of the world thought. They had an incredible strategy, and they fought and fought, and they fought dirty. And the whole thing about letting people have power just because they won something is just dangerous. And it's a lot like the Democrats holding power and the liberals holding power like that the last couple of years. It's just dangerous to let people have power for the sake of their having power, which is what really happened with that movement.
Yeah.
The same people who locked us in our homes, who lied to us about the origin of the virus, who said we should be fired from our jobs if we wouldn't take the dead baby vaccine, many of whom said we deserve to die for not taking the vaccine. We should not be treated in hospitals. These same people have also destroyed the economy and opened the borders and lost Afghanistan. Why should we trust them with anything at all? I mean, not even sharp objects. These people should have those little spoons and forks with the rubber on them.
True. Here's something that's to lighten it up a little bit. I don't know if you saw this yet, but the New York Times released 5 ways to soothe election stress. Anybody see that? Try
No.
5-finger breathing. Trace the outside of your hand with your pointer finger. When you trace up, breathe in. And when you trace down, breathe out. Remember? Cool down. Your face in a bowl with ice water for 15 to 30 seconds. Move. Even a walk around the block can offer some relief for the uneasy mind, except if you live in New York where you might get mugged and stabbed and beaten to death.
This is crazy.
Breathe like a baby. I'm not making this up. This is real. Breathe like a baby.
What do they
Focus on
think
the-
we are?
Babies.
The New Yorkers.
Babies.
It's for New Yorkers.
I guess
Focus-
they are babies.
Focus on
Uh-huh.
expanding your belly as you breathe, which can send more oxygen to the brain. Okay.
This is
Limit
great.
scrolling. Consider plotting out specific times when you look for election updates. Number 6, watch the stream's coverage. Come tune into
There you
the
go.
stream. No, I didn't have that. But that was
Yeah, the
serious.
whole health readers of the New York Times feel much calmer if they listen to us.
Yeah.
I gave it.
But this is
I wrote
the-
an article. When
As
was it?
I'm
6
trolling the
years
New York Times right now.
One of my
Step
biggest
7.
articles on the stream 6 years ago was advice for liberals on living under a president you didn't want, and that thing went crazy. But I think a lot of it was from liberals complaining about it. Had a lot of views
Yeah.
on that one.
Did you
Because we didn't
did you
practice.
offer advice on moving to Canada or Belgium?
I can't remember if that was in there. It might have been actually. Yeah,
Canada.
but
That's just nutty.
yeah.
Yeah. So one other thing that was kind of interesting, it was like some of the polling that was come out from Trafalgar. They're showing like Zeldin basically a little bit ahead. Dixon that race darn close. What was interesting was watch for the submerged GOP voter, and they weren't talking about people Hillary drowned. I gather, but basically it's the people who didn't want to tell posters they're voting Republican. I mean, are we seeing any evidence tonight that's the case, or people overperforming? Is it a little too early?
I mean, right now, Fetterman is leading in Pennsylvania, but only 3% of the votes are in. So,
Too soon.
really ahead. But
It's hard to tell in any of the Senate races. It's so early. I mean, none of these numbers are real yet because the urban areas are always their vote totals for the most part are going to come out earlier than the rural areas.
Yeah, I think Oz, he's going to have to win by 5 or 6% to beat the cheating in Pennsylvania. He's going to have to really, 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 really do well because that state is just so messed up. What else we got going here? We see again, you got Sarah Sanders, her winning. That makes her, taking over her dad's old job, which is kind of neat. I guess Sununu, the same thing in New Hampshire. That's kind of neat going into the family business. Yeah.
The thing about Sarah, though, is she's qualified, Al. I'm not one that likes. I mean, my friend Susan Wright ran for her late husband Ron Wright's seat, but Susan was qualified. She actually had more experience than Ron did in government. But I mean, Sarah is an unbelievable political operative. I mean, she did an incredible job. I think all of us could say in the Trump White House, but even beyond, she was running her father's campaign for president. So I just want to make that distinction that most people are not for like the family dynasty stuff happening unless these people are qualified. If they're qualified or beyond qualified, it makes it a different story. And Sarah is definitely one of those that not only has the heart and the integrity, but has she knows what she's doing.
She's smart. Yeah, she's very, very smart. And it'll be interesting to see. I was, don't want to talk about 2024 and beyond too much yet, but there are people talking about, okay, well, is it time to move past Trump? And you're sitting there going, good grief, the GOP has a bench. And like
Huge bench.
I mean, can you imagine DeSantis, Nome, Lake, Huckabee Sanders in 4, if not 6 years from now, whatever.
Taylor Greene.
Man, she won really easy today, despite all the effort to take her down.
Despite all the efforts to actually kill her by repeatedly calling SWAT teams to her house.
Yeah, that didn't get much play.
Lauren Boebert, you just got Tim Scott, you've got Pence, just a lot of people. It's a huge bench.
Winsome Sears in Virginia, give her more close to 6 to 10 years. We'll see.
Really, who will the Democrats put forward? Gavin Newsom, the killer robot. I can't really think of anybody else who has potential national appeal. Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren. These are caricatures.
The one Democrat, the one who would be serious is somebody who has game. They never nominate, which would be Sinema.
Right.
She's smart. She's shrewd. I started noticing her. And Bunny, you're the expert on this sort of thing. Is that Sinema is very, very entertaining. She's very funny and very charismatic. Yet when she became a senator, she didn't go on the national shows. You didn't see her on CNN all over the place like AOC and on MSNBC when she could dominate the format because she is very charismatic and very entertaining. And I thought, oh my gosh, she's going under the radar. She's going to get her hands dirty. She's going to be working underneath in some other way. She's looking ahead to the time when the Democrats have to come backwards like they did in 92 towards the center. She's going to be their Bill Clinton. Whether in 2028 or whatever. And I thought, but they're never going to nominate her because they hate her because she thinks independently, I guess we should say. And they hate that.
And I've seen that most of the members of Congress or senators that actually do the most work, and I'm not saying that for every as a rule, but the ones that actually are like really pushing the needle behind the scenes are ones that are not going on the news every 2 seconds. There's kind of like the worker bee member of Congress that actually is doing the job, and then there's the drone. And legitimately, some of them are better on communications and press than others. And so, like Chip Roy would be the ones doing the press conference, and Congressman Michael Cloud down in Victoria, Texas, might be doing work. Both of them are, solid conservative Christians, but they just have different personalities and different ways that they do their job, right? But I think that's an interesting philosophy, Al. Yeah. Kind of interesting with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's the only one. So assuming there's a red wave tonight and we're still early in the night, the Democrats, assuming, oh God, I was going to say something obnoxious, have to do some soul searching about what they're going to do. Is there going to be a pivot like there was with Clinton in 94? Or are they just going head first over the cliff and they don't care, and it's going to take a total wreckage before they.
I don't think the Democrats are capable of pulling back at this point. Once you've done what they did in 2016, which is say that the president has been chosen by the Russians and that he's the equivalent of the Nazis, and we need to form a resistance, and we need to nullify the results of a presidential election and do repeated impeachment hearings based on nothing, and fake a foreign policy scandal with Russia collusion. Once you've done that, you're kind of in the bunker in 1945 with the Russians closing in around you. You're not going to do a negotiated peace after that. I think the Democrats are all in with madness, with frenzy, with insanity. I don't see them coming back minus a major, major catastrophe.
Well, that's an interesting thing because you look and you go, okay, Pelosi's, assuming the Republicans take the House, Pelosi's, gone. And for whatever you say about her, she is she's one of the old school. She does go back to the days when things were much more rational. Oh, as liberal as she is, you don't see coming up underneath her the younger ones who have the juice, who would be people who would be rational people, and that's not good for.
Yeah, you've got the squad
We'll see.
instead.
They're starting to drink, and you know. But if you are like the DNC, what do you do to? Okay, Bunny, I've just made you the head of the DNC. Let's assume there's this
great.
red wave.
I got my blue shirt on.
Yep, that's right. And you've tomorrow, in terms of like looking forward for 2024 or whatever. Or whatever.
Well, you advise your candidates to not be doing like John. What's the governor of New York's name?
Kathy Hochul.
Yeah, Kathy Hochul. Her main message has been anti-gun and pro-abortion. That's been her main message, right? You have to realize that's not the things that people are voting on. You're right. And so they have to go back to talking about what real people care about. And that's where you're seeing this huge surge in Latino voters going to the GOP and, you know, Black voters going to the GOP. I mean, the latest estimate I saw, which I'm not sure I believe it yet, is that 21% of Blacks are voting for the Republican Party. If that is the case, that's huge. That's a huge pickup, and they're really concerned if that's happening, which could be showing why President Biden was going to some of these key states that he shouldn't have been going to. But it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, right now, what's going on in South Carolina? Ted Budd is running neck and neck for Senate against Sherry Beasley. I mean, it's like literally 30,000 votes between the two in North Carolina. I mean, I don't understand some of these states like North Carolina.
Yeah.
Where it's,
I mean,
toss-ups. I mean, these are all going to be really tough races and toss-ups tonight.
I mean, I guess where I was going with this, and Gail, let me hear your opinions on this, is they did the polling and they're like 66% of the people don't want Biden to run again. If you're the Democrat, is your smart move to just unload on Biden and that blame it all on like the White House and the disastrous Biden, and it's all Biden's fault? We got to push Biden out and look forward to 2024. We've gotten the message. And he was lying about it, but still the idea of like, you're going to find a scapegoat and you're going to blame Biden and take him out.
It's actually been pretty interesting to see what the White House has put out on Twitter in the past couple of days, what the POTUS account has put out on Twitter the past couple of days. And it's been very much my administration or the Biden administration. So it is really interesting to see how, and even going into this election, do we want Biden on the trail for people going out and campaigning, and where should we send him for this? It's very interesting to see how there has kind of been this shift of more like it's the Biden administration. And I remember a big thing being when he took the White House, the Biden-Harris administration. And the longer this has gone on of the 2 years, it's become the Biden administration, and more pushing him to the fact that you pointed this out in Brew of when the New York Times and the Washington Post are bringing up the 25th Amendment. It does very much seem like the bus is about to find another speed bump.
Yeah. I mean, that would be my cutthroat move, I think, if I were them. Just starting fresh. We're starting afresh. We've gotten the message. We're starting fresh. Oh, you don't change the policies, per se, but you start fresh.
But if a head rolls, heads must roll. And if a head rolls, then that's a starting over again, right? that what you're saying?
And it's,
Having Kamala Harris, the mean lady from the DAV who tells you that the line is closed, having her as president is not going to help. Nobody likes her, not even her friends.
Oh, but she'd be just the caretaker, because basically the 2024 election starts tomorrow morning.
Do you think she'd accept being a caretaker? Do you think the black community would like it if they say, "Well, we're going to let her be president for a couple of years, but we're not going to let her be the standard bearer for the party"? I mean, I look forward to the vicious infighting that would provoke in the Democratic Party when Pete Buttigieg gets all the money and the support against the sitting black female president, first woman president.
No, but she can run. I'm just saying. I just think that that the White House, it might not be a focal point so much, because once like I said, the 2024 the focus, in a sense, so it'd be almost like she's almost like a in the background, basically.
You would need to get her. You would need to get her on board that she doesn't want to run for re-election. Promise her some really fantastic bribe, like a Supreme Court seat or something, so that she says right up front, "I'm not running again," and gets that out of the way.
Our director of NASA, she seems to love the science thing, and that's the only time she ever seems excited is when she's talking about Venn diagrams and.
what's kind of sad to me is how not obvious any of this is to a lot of people. I mean, where has Harris campaigned for these midterms?
She was in California yesterday.
In California and New York. I mean, that's a very soft ball to go to California.
Yeah.
But it's sort of wondering, are they I'm just very surprised at how you don't see this. It's sort of, we have seen for 2 years Biden degrading, speech getting worse, flip-flopping back and forth. 2 days before midterm saying, "I'm shutting down plants." And so the solution is bringing out a tried and true Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama. And it's really something to me that this isn't getting old. Seeing the same thing isn't getting old. You haven't caught on.
Yeah, the chances that two heads would roll, not just Biden but Harris's.
Bringing out Barack Obama at this point is like having Nickelback as your musical guest on Saturday Night Live.
There you go.
Yeah. I saw a thing from Jen Psaki where she talked about how that Clinton lost 36 seats, but still went on to re-election. By Obama.
Whoop.
That was basically the same thing as, but that's like saying, but Joe Biden is comparing Joe Biden to Bill Clinton and Barack Obama is like comparing Jack Benny to the Rolling Stones and Beatles. It's not the same thing. Herschel Walker pulling a very little bit, but at least he's caught up.
Yep, but it's 50% of the votes are in, and it's pretty much neck and neck.
Wow.
Ain't over yet, is it?
Yeah. Oh, wow. So, and the other guys got the Libertarians got 1.8, and so the question would be: is even if Walker won, would he get enough over 50 to avoid a runoff? So that's the big question. So what's going on here in Arizona? The temporary restraining order ruled against it. I guess they're trying to keep the polls open because of all the nonsense down there. Okay. Alrighty. So anyway, so here we are. It is 9 o'clock. Do we want to catch a breath a little bit? Take a break, come back in an hour? What do you think?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Do it.
Okay.
10 o'clock
Thanks all the folks
Eastern.
who are watching. And an hour, I'm going to stretch, maybe change your costumes, like Cher playing Vegas, and we'll see you back here in an hour. Right?
All right.
It'll be what, 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Pacific, and I don't know
Do the math.
Hawaiian. Do the math.
I appreciate all you brains on this call right now.
Thank you all.
All
Yes.
right.
Yes.
We'll see ya.